Hey everybody, this is Perch. So I mean, the news is fully out. I mean, we talked about it. I've talked about it before, but Rachel Pollack, so writer of Doom Patrol, many other comics. You may like Rachel Pollack, you may not. She gave an interview on this channel. It's great. A lot of you tuned in. Again, whether you like the work or not, one of the things I think you can recognize from Rachel's work is there's a genuine passion for the comics, for coming up with something new, for not doing something derivative, for actually, listening to customers, to fans, figuring out what they want, navigating a story that fits that, bringing something new to the table, and like a good creative team, and this is one of those attributes that I think people often gloss over, being fairly unapologetic about, hey, I listened to you, I gathered some data, I figured out a good story, and now I'm giving it to you, and here it is. And hopefully you like it. And if you don't, I missed, and okay, I'm not going to sit here and like wishy-washy try and convince you that you should have liked it or anything else. But I'm also not gonna insult you for not liking it. I think Rachel's had a pretty wonderful track record with customers and with fans, and her work on Doom Patrol was very, I would say, obscure. It was very alternative. It was not mainstream at all, and yet she somehow manages to not shit on people who don't like it. And there's a good percentage of people who won't like it because it is very, very different. It's very, and to the listeners of this show, if you're not really familiar with Rachel Pollack, writer for comics, and definitely like a David Lynch type style for comics. So if you're a big fan of like 90s like Wildcat Cyberforce, odds are you're not going to like what Rachel puts out. But despite that, you can recognize that there's a person with some skill who's actually trying to produce something for an audience that she knows and is listening and putting something out. It was a great interview. It was a great, very candid conversation with Rachel. At any rate, she is in the ICU. She's doing very poorly. And, they've set up a GoFundMe. I think she had cash to get through some of this stuff. But now at this point with cancer that has advanced, it's pretty serious. And so they're doing a GoFundMe, which I know on some level Rachel really had no interest in doing. Rachel did a good job of saving money and trying to, put some funds together for exactly the reason that she never wanted to come doing this. And the GoFundMe has been set up on her behalf. I'll be completely honest, I don't know if Rachel's even aware that the GoFundMe has been set up. But regardless, this is one of those cases where you look at it and you go, okay, how could we have avoided needing to do this? And in many situations, I would tell you, hey, don't go give money to the GoFundMe. Instead, go to your local comic shop, your Barnes & Noble, wherever it is, pick up the trade paperback of something Rachel has done, buy it, try it out. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but I can at least assure you that is somebody who is not phoning it in. This is somebody who's actually really trying to tell a story. And so whether you like it or not, again, you will at least be able to admit that it's somebody who's not who's giving a good faith effort to putting out something new. And that would normally be my advice, but here's the problem with that advice. Okay, number one, she's got lots of work that is out of print or hard to get your hands on. So one extremely easy thing that DC Comics could do is put out some trades and put out more copies of that omnibus, or maybe get the price more motivated to sell of her work. They could do that. They'd have to get printed and everything else, but for all intents and purposes, they could do it tomorrow. You could put some of that work out. Imagine, if you will, if DC Comics on their Twitter account said something along the lines of, hey, we had a creator, Rachel Pollack, did a bunch of work for us, and, she's suffering some health issues, late stage cancer. And, we support Rachel. She did some work for us once upon a time. And you can, why don't you buy her comics? Here it is. And we will make sure that, we give her a double the royalty that was normally promised. We're gonna take less profit for ourselves. We're gonna cover the costs of what it ever took to make this thing, and we're gonna make sure the rest goes to Rachel. because this will help her out in in her medical condition that she's got going on right now, and you get a comic out of the in the deal, and this also helps bring some new fans to Rachel, which as she's recovering. Let's not forget the moral side of this, which is or the morale, I guess better way the morale, not moral, morale side of this, which is, hey, we get to give she gets a little morale boost of some people buying her comics and gets to have something out on an Amazon bestseller list, maybe. Like let's in addition to just the money that we're going to give her, let's give her some promotion and some fame. She worked for us and worked hard, so yeah, why don't we do that? Imagine if you went on to Twitter or Facebook and you saw that posted. You'd feel pretty good, right? I have to imagine that even the most cynical fuck DC, fuck Marvel people would look at that and go, well, okay, I admire that. I admire the company looking out for their people. I admire the double benefit of gets cash, gets promotion. That's pretty cool. I like that. Imagine if that's what happened. But you do have to just imagine it, because there's no way in hell DC's doing anything like that. They're too busy. I don't know. Who the fuck knows what they're doing? But anyway, that's a fundamental difference. So that's one reason why I would, like I said, I would recommend you just buy her work, which is better than a GoFundMe, because you give her that double benefit. But unfortunately, you can't buy her work by and large because it's not available to you. There's very little of Rachel's that's available, and DC has made it hard to buy it. And then there's the second reason, and this is the one that is even worse. I would tell you go buy that stuff because, she'll get a royalty check, but I'm not sure she will. Certainly not in a timely fashion. And look, as long as I'm pissing off Marvel and DC, let me go for the jugular here. Those companies don't pay their royalties on a timely basis. Those companies, whether it's out of ignorance or maliciousness, regularly fuck their creators by just being slow in paying out what they owe them. And I'm sorry, it's true. We've had these companies, and this is probably where I get most pissed off at the Jim Lees, Joe Quesadas, the people who once upon a time were creators who got bent over by the companies they got to be high-level managers at. Once upon a time, those companies screwed them and didn't pay royalties on time, or jerked around with, Jim Lee goes off to Wildstorm and Marvel, just decides to slow everything down. This is stuff they experienced themselves that created hardships to them. And yet, when they got into a position of management authority, it's like, yeah, I don't need to fix that problem. And at least one of those two individuals was asked directly by me. Why am I being coy with it? Joe Quesada was asked by me, like, hey, have you fixed the royalty program? And it's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We care about our creators. That's funny, because when I go talk to some of your creators, they have a much different story of having to harass people to get their checks, basically not knowing that they're even owed a check until somebody on Facebook tells them, hey, did you realize they reprinted some of your shit? And did you know that was even done? Or did you know that one of your characters being used in a movie and you're probably owed a check? It's like, oh my God, I need to go check that out. I need to go look into that. Do you realize how often that's happened to me, and I guarantee you many other people over the years, where creators get informed that their creations or the money that they are owed is out there and they need to go check into that? Do you realize how often that's happened? It's happened a lot. This is a continual story in comics. And this is one of those, like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Like, this is why I'm so hard. I've sent me mail before going, why are you such a dick to the Joe Quesadas and the Jim Lees? And the answer is, the people who are in charge have the ability and responsibility to make better change. And by and large, they get busy with other things. And there's always the excuse. It's like, well, I can't, look at every detail in my organization. Yeah, except you can, and you're supposed to. I'm sorry, ignorance of this so big a company. I don't. I mean, well, I'm not empowered to go talk to the finance department and get them to pay things on time. Except you could. Except as a leader, you could say, you know what, this may get me fired, but fuck it. We need to pay our people better. We need to actually put money where it belongs. We need to help out. We need to, I mean, hell, this isn't even about helping creators. This is about literally living up to your contracts and not using the bullshit excuse of, well, half of the creators here are too stupid to pay attention to what's going on in the market, or they get too busy, or they're too poor to understand what's going on. So we're just going to use this as a little loophole. And for God's sake, Disney, not even Marvel, but Disney as a company has been playing this scam for decades, where they will basically underpay people and then they will make, quote unquote, make good. It's kind of the same equivalency of you paid way too much taxes and you get a refund from the IRS. And it's funny because every year, like clockwork, there are two types of people I engage with. One type of person goes, I got a huge refund. Yeah, I'm going to Vegas. Those people are stupid. Those people are too dumb to realize that they basically gave the government a loan for a year, and now they're getting a pittance of money back of what they were owed, forgetting the fact that that money could have gone into things that earned them interest, stock, all kinds of things. They gave the government a loan. That's what you did. When you get money back, it means you overpaid and you gave the government a loan for the year. That's what you did. Do you really want to celebrate that? Did you get interest on that loan? No, you did not. But anyway, there's two types of people I engage with: the people who get really giddy about their tax return, and the people who are pissed. And the people who are pissed are the people I want around me when we're doing business or building a project, because those people are like, God damn it, the government stole money from me. How? It's like I paid them too much because of the broken tax system, and I got a refund, which means I basically gave them a free loan with no interest, and they're angry about it. And I'm always like, you're my kind of people. That's right. That is correct. Anyway, I'm off track a little bit. But the key here is Rachel Pollack is in dire straits. And here we are where there's it would take an almost insignificant amount of work for Rachel Pollack to get both the royalty she's owed and also get more books out into the market so she could get both fame and royalties. Hell, even if these companies were like, we're not giving her an extra dime of what we owe her. Even if that was the case, just putting stuff back onto print is free money for her and money for them. They get a profit off of her illness in this case. How sick is that? That's the world. That's where we're at. And I guess what irks me, and this part shouldn't, but there's a small part of me that gets me crazy about this, is DC will bend over backwards for Pride Month and LGBTQ representation and everything else, and creators are hiring and everything else. And here you've got a trans woman in the 90s who wrote for you long before any of the rest of this shit. So you could do a parade for how progressive you are, basically getting ahead of the curve 30 years ago, and you could financially support this person. You have the ability, and pat yourself on the back doing so, even though that there are no ESG funds giving free loans to these comic companies. You could say, look at, we should fucking max out the ESG score because we're basically taking care of a trans creator from 30 years ago who worked for our company. But nope. Silence. Instead, it's like, hey, you know what? Here's how we're supporting the trans community. We have a character that appears in a backup story in an anthology that is trans, and there was a variant cover made where Harley Quinn is waving a flag that we think is the bisexual flag, but to be honest, we're not really sure because we don't really give a shit. But we made that variant cover, and then we put a $9.99 price tag on this thing. That's how progressive we are, motherfucker. That's what we did. Anyway, do you see how broken this is? It's thoroughly broken. And by the way, if you're one of the large channels that's constantly railing against the SJW woke bullshit, if that's your deal, that's how you make money. Literally, this is your best ammo to go after these companies for being hypocritical assholes. This is it. Will we see a bunch of videos over the next week to do this? Probably not, because it's not as exciting about talking and jerking off to how DC Comics is going to die in the next week. Here is something that is tangible, real, with data and facts. I'll describe your thumbnail for you. You put, very basic, and you take whatever YouTuber is doing this, like get a little picture of yourself looking like either hand over the face palm, or shocked, and you say, DC Comics couldn't give a shit to help out a trans creator. How about that? There's your thumbnail. Do that. Seriously. Like, people are always digging for ways to go at these companies. There you go. Here's one. It's sitting right there, and it's real. It's not an imagined story. It's not maybe a contact told me this from the inside for that, but whatever. This is something real that everybody can see. You got Rachel, a woman who worked for your company 30 years ago, who is dying, who's in critical condition in the ICU, who is now having to put up a GoFundMe, despite the fact she did not want to. And you have the ability very easily to not loan her money, not give her money, but put literally books she did for you into print and pay her for it. You have that ability. You had the ability months ago when you were doing your Pride issue, and you didn't bother to make a phone call or write an email offering her to do a story and pay her shit rates to do it. You didn't even do that. That to me is far more damning than any imagined bullshit that can be created out there, because it is 100% real and everyone can see it. So how about that? Anyway, the reason I'm so pissed is because this is entirely avoidable. I talk about unforced errors. This is one of them. You have the ability to help, but I guarantee you that I'm going to wind up putting far more money in Rachel Pollack's pocket than a multi-million-dollar corporation that has billion-dollar IPs. I guarantee you that's the case. And if you want to show the receipts, we can show the receipts. I don't know.